In 1958, a U.S. Air Force pilot named Major Howard Richardson dropped a hydrogen bomb into the sea off the Georgia coast, and 68 years later, it has never been found. Just after midnight, 38,000 feet up, a fighter jet slammed into his B-47 bomber in the dark and tore an engine half off the wing. The bomber rolled and dropped, and somehow Richardson caught it. But bolted in its belly was a 3.5-ton hydrogen bomb he had no safe way to land. So what do you do with a hydrogen bomb you can't bring home? He had minutes to decide. The collision had cracked a wing spar and left an engine hanging half off, and he could not risk landing with the bomb aboard. In the bay was a Mark 15 hydrogen bomb wrapped around 400 pounds of high explosive that a hard landing could set off. Hunter's runway was closed for repairs, so Richardson got permission to drop it, swung out over Wassaw Sound off Tybee Island, and opened the bomb bay doors. The bomb tumbled into the dark and hit the water far below. The high explosive held. No blast, just gone. That splash is where you'd think the story ends. It's where the mystery starts. Because that bomb was never recovered. It's still out there tonight, somewhere under the mud of Wassaw Sound. A full-size thermonuclear weapon lost off an American beach. But Richardson's night wasn't over. He just let go 3.5 tons of dead weight, and he still had to land a falling, half-wrecked bomber on a runway that was closed, coming in far too fast to stop. A B-47 normally lands at about 180 knots. Richardson came in at 220. He had to, with the wing cracked and an engine hanging loose. Slowing down any further could roll the bomber into the ground. So he aimed the wreck at Hunter's torn-up runway and held it fast. Far too fast, the dark ground rushing up. He popped the drag chute and the wheels slammed down. The bomber skipped back into the air, came down again, and this time it held. It rolled out long and hard down the damaged strip and stopped. And Major Howard Richardson climbed down out of a bomber that would never fly again. Everyone survived. The fighter pilot, Lieutenant Clarence Stewart, had ejected high in the freezing air and rode his chute down for more than 20 minutes, landing with frostbitten hands, but alive. Richardson's co-pilot, Bob Lagerstrom, and his navigator, Leland Woolard, walked away beside him. For bringing that wreck home, Richardson was given the Distinguished Flying Cross. And notice what it was for: landing the bomber and saving his crew. Not, whatever you may have heard since, for saving a city from a nuclear explosion. That myth grew later. The truth was quieter and stranger, because the bomb he'd let go was now lying in shallow water off a Georgia beach, and the Air Force had to go and find it. The search started the next morning and ran for 9 weeks. Wassaw Sound is shallow, 30, maybe 40 feet deep, so a bomb this size should have been findable. The Navy put around 100 men on it, divers down in the cold water, sonar sweeping the bottom, and heavy cables dragged back and forth across the seabed to snag the casing. They worked it all through February and into April. They found nothing. On the 16th of April, 1958, the military gave up and declared the bomb irretrievably lost. And that left the Air Force one question to answer in public. Could a lost hydrogen bomb still go off? The answer was no. And it came down to one missing part. A Mark 15 needs a separate capsule holding its fissile core, slotted in only when a strike is ordered. On a training flight like this one, the rule was to fly without it. And the receipt Richardson signed that night backed him up. A dummy capsule, no live core aboard. No core means no chain reaction and no mushroom cloud. Not in 1958, and not under the silt today. As far as the Air Force was concerned, the case was closed. And for 8 years, it stayed closed. Then a single document tore it open again. In 1966, an Assistant Secretary of Defense named W.J. Howard handed Congress a list of America's lost nuclear weapons, and he described the Tybee bomb as a complete weapon, one carrying a real nuclear capsule. When that testimony came to light years later, it relit the whole legend. Maybe a live hydrogen bomb really had been sitting off the Georgia coast this entire time. But the scary version leaves out what happened next. When Howard was pressed on it, he took it back, said he'd been mistaken, that the bomb was not complete after all. And Richardson, until the day he died, never budged. The paper says no capsule. I think I know what I signed for. Here's the honest answer. After 68 years, no one can be completely certain what went into the water. But the weight of the evidence, the signed receipt, the standing policy, Howard's own retraction, all points the same way. No live core. And on the thing that matters most, the physics isn't in dispute. A bomb lying in the mud cannot set itself off. There is no countdown down there. The real hazard was never a nuclear flash. It's the 400 pounds of high explosive sealed in the casing. And that only becomes a danger if someone goes down and disturbs it. Which left the government with a very real problem. What to do with a hydrogen bomb that was now part of the seabed off a public Georgia beach? In 2001, the Air Force and the Department of Energy took one last serious look. Their survey suggested the bomb had settled and worked its way under 5 to 15 feet of seabed silt. And they reached a counterintuitive call. Don't recover it. Dragging a corroded, high-explosive weapon up out of the mud would be far more dangerous than leaving it asleep. So that became the official position of the United States government toward a lost hydrogen bomb off a public beach. Leave it undisturbed, right where it lay. But in 2004, a retired Air Force officer decided he could find it himself. His name was Derek Duke, and he worked Wassaw Sound with a radiation detector. One day, the needle jumped. Over a patch of seabed about the size of a football field, the reading climbed well above the water around it. The story went off like a flare. The lost Tybee bomb, found at last. Then the Air Force tested the same spot, and the answer let all the air out of it. The radiation was real, but it was coming from natural minerals in the local sand, a mineral called monazite. Not from any bomb. Duke had found a hot patch of seabed. He had not found a hydrogen weapon. So why did Major Howard Richardson drop a hydrogen bomb off the coast of Georgia? Not to save a city. He never claimed that. And there's no evidence a city was ever in danger. He did it for the plainest reason a pilot has: to get a broken airplane and the men inside it back on the ground alive. He asked for permission, he got it, and he let the sea take the one thing he couldn't safely carry. It worked. Everyone came home. And the weapon he released is still out there tonight, buried in the dark under Wassaw Sound. 68 years lost, deliberately left alone, the quietest secret off the coast of Georgia.